All right, Dad.
All right.
How many children do you have? When were they born? And how did you decide what to name each of them?
Oh boy. We have two living daughters. We actually Marion had gotten pregnant in '77, I think, and had a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got pregnant with Sarah, and I don't know. I guess as most parents do, we just went through the books to see what the popular names were, and so we decided on Sarah. Um, we did know Sarah Winter, but her name was spelled Sarah, and my mother's middle name was Sarah, and I always thought she spelled it Sara, but no, I think both of them had an H, but we spelled Sarah without an H.
Mm-hmm.
And her middle name, Marie, was, I guess, her, she had some relative. Marie was, I think, Mary and Marie, sister-in-law and sister-in-law's sister, twin sister.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's Marion, just like Marion, Marie, I guess. So that we got Sarah Marie.
Mm-hmm.
Then Amy came by, same way. I think Marion did have a friend that was named. No, that was her name was Ruth, I think. But anyway, so I think Amy was just a popular name. And I said, yeah, Amy, if we spelled it with an IE instead of the MAY.
Mm-hmm.
So and Ruth, that a Bible name, went well with Amy Ruth. Only thing I can figure out for Ruth, although Marion had a friend I think named Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
And so Marion always said, whenever she'd give out the name, she'd say Marion with an O, Sarah without an H, and Amy with an IE.
Uh-huh. Do you know how far along she was when she miscarried?
No, it was one of those things. She didn't tell me too much about it. I mean, it was a while. I mean, after it happened at home, she didn't say anything about it for a while.
But you knew she was pregnant?
Yeah.
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 What is your favorite story about each of your children?
Oh boy. That's a good story. Good question. I do remember one thing about Sarah when she was about 4 years old or something. And just a cute thing about that age. She was sitting on the front porch one day and it was a beautiful day, bright sky and blue sky and sunny day. And I said to her, Sarah, this is a beautiful day. You couldn't beat it with a stick. And she said, yeah, or Jesus would be mad. So other than that, I remember playing with the kids, especially I remember playing horse. I'd be the horse, they'd ride me, and I'd go around the coffee table and buck them off onto the couch.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess that'd be the best time, or them jumping off my shoulders and doing a dive.
Yeah.
Of course, I had a hold of their hands. So I guess it'd be playing with the kids, roughhousing with them, or just playing around with them.
What is something funny or embarrassing one of your children said at an early age that you'll never forget?
Oh boy. I don't remember anything. No, I don't think of anything in that regard.
Well, what is the most memorable family vacation you took?
Oh boy. Well, we had several, but maybe the last one we went west. I don't know if the kids liked it, but in '96 we went west, like to Yellowstone, and we said we did a bad thing. We told them on the way back we were going to stop at the Mall of America in Minneapolis, So right away, they were kind of, the West didn't appeal to them. They were ready to go to the Mall of America right away. But that time we did do the horseback riding in the Teton in the mountains there at Jackson Hole. Took a kind of a float trip down the Snake River there, and we did a lot of that one day. Saw Yellowstone. Stopped at Iowa State Geology Camp on the way through Shell, Wyoming. And I think that's the time we stopped in Mitchell, South Dakota at the Corn Palace. Then went to the Mall of America. Spent a couple days there, I think, and then came on home. That was a great trip. Although that one in 1989, we drove to California. My sister Rosemary lived in Hollywood, so we'd taken kind of the southern route out there through Oklahoma and Arizona and that way. And several things. One thing, we had a flat tire on Highway 40 there in the mountains. You just barely pull over to change the tire. Trucks whizzing by, I had to change the tire. And we stopped in Albuquerque and bought a used tire in a junkyard. Crossed the desert to California and spent some time with my sister and went to the beach and then we kind of took the northern route. We went up to San Francisco and visited Bob McCarr knew some people that had a vineyard. We went out to their vineyard and they kind of gave us a tour, ate some sandwiches with them, and kind of came back the north route through Salt Lake City and the northern route up through Cheyenne, Wyoming, and then down to Colorado Springs and went to the Royal Gorge there. We stayed with a family there that Bob Kruger knew. Spent a night or two there at their house. Then came back through Kansas, Liberal, where Dorothy, what was that movie called?
The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz was. Saw that, and then saw them Cowtown, Dodge City, and Wichita, and what's the other one? Remember those along the Santa Fe Trail. Man, I'm trouble remembering those towns besides Wichita, Dodge City, and Abilene.
Okay.
I think it was in Abilene we rode the old stagecoach, horse-drawn stagecoach, but of course it had soft leather seats. So that was a great trip. We were gone about 23 days then.
Yeah.
Drove over 5,000 miles, I think, on that trip.
Wow. In our Buick, wasn't that?
Yeah, that was the old Buick, yeah.
The Iowa State camp, that's where you stayed. You lived there for a summer, didn't you?
Right. Geology. It was a geology summer camp. Yeah, so in 1958, it was really the first year of the camp. They'd been there in that area the year before, just stayed with families. They didn't have a site. They had I think before that they were in Colorado somewhere. And it must have been 57. They went to Wyoming and just stayed in homes there. And then I guess they kind of built the camp. They actually took these buildings from, it was a camp between Powell and Cody, Wyoming. I think during World War II they had a camp there where they housed those Japanese Americans. Actually put them in almost like camps where they couldn't get out. So they'd bought some of those buildings and moved them there near Shell, Wyoming. And that's what we lived in. We actually had outhouses. In '58 we did almost, and Shell Creek went right by there. So we'd bathe in there, brush your teeth in the river. And then during that summer we had teams of 3 and one, maybe a few days, one team was staying to help build. We actually helped build the shower house.
Oh. Do they still use that camp?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, we let's see. I guess that was the last time I was by there in '96. But yeah, I'm sure they use that's the same camp.
And what did you do? Were you like in a class, or were you actually like looking for things around there?
Well, it would be classes, and I mean, did field work. Like one thing, we had teams of three people would go out, and one thing we made a topographical map of a square mile. That was one of the projects, and you know, out there in Wyoming, and there's hardly any vegetation, so it's easy to see the bedrocks. That's why they really have it out there. Of course, it's near the mountains too, Bighorn Mountains,
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd go out and do, you know, study the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Classroom study, but most of the time field work. It was kind of a field camp. And we did go to Wyoming, went to Yellowstone 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
And we had our sleeping bags and just throw them out on the ground. No tents, just slept on the ground with our sleeping bags
Yeah.
among the bears.
Were you worried about bears?
Not really. We didn't. We saw it back in those days. You'd see a lot of bears
Uh-huh.
along the roads because they allowed you to feed the bears.
Oh.
And one bear came through our camp, but when I wasn't there at the time, it came through. But other than that, we didn't see any bears in our camp.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of I don't know, there was I think there were 20 some of us in that camp that summer. And you know, like when we went to Yellowstone, even in camp you'd have KP duty. You'd have to, you know, your group would help with breakfast or lunch or what, or we usually took lunch out, I think, but breakfast or dinner,
Mm-hmm.
like do the toast or whatever,
Right.
wash the dishes,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a boot camp.
Mm-hmm. Well, back to the kids. How did you feel about raising your children? What was the best part or the hardest part?
It's kind of hard for me to remember back at how any tough part about it. Seemed like it was all pretty not too bad, even changing diapers.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we very seldom got a babysitter for our kids, only a few times, and we'd usually just take the kids along with us, like birthdays, whatever, just consider them part of the family, even as children. We just take them with us.
Yeah.
And I say both Sarah and Amy I consider good kids. They didn't give us any problems, or not many problems of a serious nature.
Uh-huh.
We always took them to church. Give them the church and their faith in the Lord and trust in God, and they always picked good friends. I think maybe Sarah had a friend that wasn't too good for a while, but eventually things work out to where you get good friends, and I think that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. What about our personalities? What do you remember about our personalities as kids?
I don't know. I don't think I analyzed them too much. Maybe Sarah might have been a little more strong-willed, and Amy a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah. What makes you proud of your children?
That's a good question. Well, I consider them good and honest people and loving people, and they're family oriented and loyal. I guess you'd say that. Even Sarah and Amy are even Iowa State fans.
What's the best thing about being a parent?
Uh-oh. It's still going?
Yeah.
I would say the best thing about being a parent would be, well, I always said Marion provided me with romance, marriage, and kids. So just to be a family. And they always say you're not a parent until you have more than one kid. With a single child, you know who did it. If you got at least two or more, you never know who did it. So we have to try to figure out who to blame, and I'm sure we didn't always get that right. But so I would say that's just being part of a family. I guess you learn things from raising kids, but it was all a good trip.
What about the best thing being a grandparent?
Grandparents.
What do you like about being a grandpa?
Yeah, being a grandpa. It's really interesting to see each child, how they're different and how they react, and especially notice now their energy. Maybe when I was a parent, I could keep up with the kids a little bit. Now can't keep up with them grandkids. All that energy they got, and like they always say, you can mess with the grandkids and play around with them and send them home.
How are you like your father as a parent, or how are you unlike him?
All these questions you have to think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe my dad, although he spent some time with us, I think I spent more time with my kids, playing with my kids, although Dad did some. I think we're I was like my dad, a little bit more quiet. Didn't have too awful much to say. About the same as far as discipline, I think, although my dad my dad never did spank us. But I spanked Sarah and Amy till they were, I think up till they're 12 years old. Then I gave up. I said, hey, probably learned all that they can learn from the spankings by 12.
Right. Anything else you want to say about being a father, or about your kids?
Well, just to end up saying, yeah, I'm proud of both Sarah and Amy, proud of their families, their husbands, and their kids. And it's nice to have a family.
Good. I feel like that's good for today, right?
Right.